Welcome to Living Chassidus. Together, let's live the Chassidus we learn. Okay, welcome everybody. Baruch Hashem, we are here at Living Chassidus. So Living Chassidus, just a short introduction for anyone who's new, is an organization that started 10 years ago when my husband and I realized that a lot of single women come to Crown Heights for shidduchim after seminary, and they, whether it's Bali Tshuva, whether it's FFB, Crown Heightsers, many of them live on their own. They live in basements or they live in apartments with shared roommates. And we realized that many of them could use community. They could use that constant being together with someone else and growth. And just because we finish seminary doesn't mean that the learning stops and that farbrengen stop. And many times we spend all these years learning Chassidus, and now is the time to really live Chassidus. So living Chassidus, we care for three major pillars. We do learning, so we have classes and farbrengens and regular programs to prepare for Yom Tovim. We also foster community, so we help the single women to find Shabbos meals or to connect to each other, make friends. Over Tishrei, we definitely host a lot, so we become a big part of their Tishrei experience. We're like the family in Crown Heights for them. And we also provide them support. So we have programs such as a soup gemach when someone's not feeling well. We come and we deliver chicken soup. We have programs such as Shabbos Gems. Our amazing Adina is here. She sets up hosts with the incredible gem hosts of Crown Heights, with the incredible gem guests of Crown Heights. And we set up girls to go for meals. We also help them with shidduchim. We help them. I'm a certified Kala teacher, and we provide them with that type of support. So one of the programs that we do is called Systematic Avodah Initiative, because many times we think Avodah is this otherworldly thing, and sometimes we spend a lot of time saying, okay, like for example, well, I'll do tshuva. And what we did is we made it into a system. We made it into a daily practice, something that people can take and work on throughout the month of Elul and Tishrei. And to help the Nefesh Bahamas and the Nefesh Lakis, we added two aspects. One aspect is that we host a farbrengen with incredible speakers every other week, or this year it ended up being almost every week. And for everyone that does their reading and their avodah and their journaling and their work to connect to Hashem, we provide them with prizes at every farbrengen. So today's prize for everyone that did your quota with your reading is the newest version of Shar HaBitachon. It is a beautiful sefer the size of your cell phone, which I love that ad because it fits wherever your cell phone almost fits. And you can take Bitachon with you. We've actually had several times that we've gone through Shar Bitachon through our studies, and one of our members actually did an entire siyum learning it on her own in depth, and she was celebrated by Chayenu and Kahas, and it's a very, very big part of our lives, Shar B'tachon. So everybody that earned their prize, I'm going to announce your name. You can come and pick it up, and if you live out of town, we will mail it to you, Be'ezus Hashem. So Mazel Tov to Shelby Aronson, Gula Natik, Ariela Zuckerman, Froma Hershkovik, Bela Klenderova, Esther Citrin, Rachel Greengrass, Ruta Cohen, Yosefa Wood Eisenberg, Chaim Matasov, Esther Malka Cohen, Adina Lapine, and we also have Ita Gurevich. And if I missed your name, please let me know. Now, tonight's farbrengen is in huge Sukkos to our dear friend Miriam, who we've had a discussion. I said, I'm always looking for amazing speakers. And she said, at some point, one of my favorite teachers comes to town, I will let you know and I will connect you guys. So she really made this shidduch, and we are so, so lucky to have our speaker tonight. Also, I want to give her a big shout out because her son was my son's Rebbe last year. And thanks to her son, my son learned almost six. He almost finished up till 6 prakim of Tanya, Balpeh. And there's several times when I had my window open and his class was walking down the street and they were always chanting Tanya Balpeh. So it shows an incredible mother. So tonight we have Mrs. Tsyrl Turen. She is the principal, if I understand correctly, something like that. She is an incredible mechanechus, and we're so lucky to have her.
All right. I didn't know how you knew it. Okay. Does that mean I have to hold this the whole time? Or we can leave
You
it
can,
here?
can I, you
wanna
can clip
lapel
it
it?
on your,
On my
yeah.
shirt. This works. All right.
yeah.
Good enough?
Perfect.
Okay, great. So I'm ignoring the screen. I'm looking at people.
Yes.
People that I know, and for everyone else that I don't know, since you're the odd, weird ones that come on each time to Crown Heights, let me get your name so I can remember, and then anyone else that comes and I won't know their name at all. Gabby. Geula. What's your name? Adina. Oh, so your sister with Hanalea? Oh, nice. Send her my regards. Okay. Gabby, Geula, Adina. Sorry, what's your name? Esther Malka. Okay. I'm really bad with names, so I'll probably forget. But I still, you're talking to people, you want to know something, know their name, that's their soul, right? So now we got your soul, we're good. So yeah, it's wonderful to be here. It's very special. A sukkah. We got all the makifim divino. We've got 16 high souls all here wanting to be part of our farbrengen. And because I don't know you, I really don't know anything that I'm supposed to talk about. So this could be a really short farbrengen, and that's fine too, because it's a busy place you live in. Beforehand, when I was trying to think like what should be the starting point, a farbrengen is very, it goes, it moves, it flows, it develops. What we'll talk about tonight, honestly, I don't know, but hopefully you're gonna find your voice, and that's how it will be. But of course, you have to start with something. So I wanted to start by sharing if you're looking for a short, easy mimer, this is like short, easy, and mimers that go together, but this one really does. It's really short, it's really easy. It's one of the mimerim I love because the point resonates very deeply in me. And it was from Chol Hamoed Sukkos, and I don't remember the year. My daughter has my phone, which I photocopied it on, but whatever. Does she have my phone? Someone has my phone? Oh, Miriam, do you have my phone? Oh, you got my phone. Okay. Have daughter. There goes your phone. Your phone? But so some year, Chol Hamoed Sukkos, Shabbos, farbrengen of the Rebbe gave an incredible concept. The connection to Sukkos, it's a little loose connection. Obviously, what's a mimer? A mimer means a new revelation that was never in this world before. You can learn a lot of really deep sichos, but like a mimer is taking you to a different level of spirituality, which means that year this was a new giloy that is so practical, is so helpful, and I really connected to it. I'll tell you why I connected to it. I have a son who's my youngest, is 10, and Down syndrome. Obviously, as you see, I have a range. Baruch Hashem. Avram's not even from the oldest; he's like more in the middle. But so my youngest is 10 and Down syndrome, and he's very high functioning. I always tell, whatever therapist or situation I'm in school, trying to advocate for him, I always say, I know this sounds funny, and I know I'm his mother, but he's really smart. And so that's always been my go-to with my Beryl. He's really smart kid. I don't know if you noticed the past 2 nights, if you're there late, he's the little child that goes up on the bandstand and like starts drumming, or he's playing his piano. It's adorable then, but like for the rest of the day, he will do nothing but say stage and go like this. But anyway, so I always knew he was really smart, but when I learned this mimer, something connected very deeply about it, which is probably why I really connect to this mimer. The Rebbe, like many mimerim of the Rebbe, is elaborating on a previous mimer of a previous Rebbe. This is from the Alter Rebbe in my fuzzy memory, where the Alter Rebbe, I could be wrong about the Alter Rebbe, not looking inside. But the Alter Rebbe is quoting another source, speaking about the concept of a levush, a garment. And the Alter Rebbe is saying that you can have a person who's not smart, but they say very smart things because they're quoting another wise person. So you just hear them and they sound smart. They're really not smart. And you can have a person who's really not nice. I mean, Alter Rebbe uses the word cruel. It's a really cruel person. But they act nice and they do nice things. And this is the idea of garments, levushim. And the Alter Rebbe says there's a very deep concept in this idea. He doesn't tell us what the deep concept is. So it took 7 generations for the Rebbe to explain what is the deep concept. And the Rebbe says a garment is really a very high power that changes you. And the Rebbe says, technically, you're not supposed to get changed. If you know Tanya, which I'm sure you do, a Benoni maybe can work on him transferring his emotions, his intellect. I'm sure you've heard the idea, the lands of the Keni, Knezi, and Kadmoni, we get them by Mashiach, which means the intellect of Klippa, it's not for us, don't even try. And to transform our emotions, the animal soul, you can try, and if you're Benoni, you'll get somewhere. The Rebbe says, but actually, that's normal. That's if you do it the traditional way. But there's this unbelievable power in levushim, in garments, in how you dress yourself. And as we would say, the clothing make the man. I think girls in this stage get what I'm talking about. So when we get older, we forget a little. But your garments change you. So the Rebbe says that when the Alter Rebbe is talking about that cruel person who's doing those nice things, you could even say, well, we would call that a hypocrite, a faker, a wannabe, or that not smart person that's quoting these very smart sounding ideas. The Rebbe says, no. The Alter Rebbe said there's a deep idea here. You know what the deep idea is? He's changing. Your garments change you. That's the power of garments. It's such an amazing, liberating idea. Because a lot of us feel, once we're like, I don't know, as old as like 15 or 20, we are what we are. And the Rebbe says, your garments change you. You want to change? Put on different clothing. So and the Rebbe says, look at the examples the Alter Rebbe gave. Midos and Meichen. You want to change? You're not a nice person? You don't have to raise your hands. But you're not a nice person? The Rebbe says, get dressed. Get dressed in nice clothing. That we can sort of like, yeah, that makes sense. You're not a smart person? Get dressed. Get dressed in wise words. That makes no sense to us. But the Rebbe says, that's the power of a levush. So when I learned this, I thought about my son, my very smart Down syndrome son. Because he has a crazy mother who dresses him in very smart clothing. Because since he was, I don't know how old, he has to say every day, every word of the 12 Sukkos. Sometimes that's a big challenge. Sometimes it's a bribe, sometimes, it depends what we can offer. But, when he was very little, I said, that's not very stressful. I said them. But at a certain point, I'm like, that's a cop-out. He's got to say it himself. It's hard. It's really hard. Very wise clothing. He's been dressed in every single day for, I don't remember. I can't remember how old he was when we started. I can't remember. 3, 4, 5. I don't remember. Is he verbal? Not really. But he knows the good something. I tried to get him a pasuk at the rally, but I was like, he knows the psukim. But whatever. I guess you got to plan this stuff a little in advance. And I was like, oh, that's it. That's it. That's why he's so smart. Because I dress him in wise garments. We started this, I don't remember when I started him saying the psukim, but this whole concept, probably every day of his life, I would say the psukim to him. But I made this a little official 8 years ago, meaning when he was 3, a hakel ago, I had this very big dilemma. What do I do with him? Where do I put him? And with a lot of consideration, and I wasn't sure, and got a very clear answer from the Rebbe that my husband wasn't so comfortable with. I had to get a mashpia of Igra somewhere in Eretz Yisrael. Look at my letter. We put him in public school, and I don't really have an option in Chicago anywhere else. And I had this very big fear, I'm putting my precious neshama in public school. What do I do? And I said, okay, Shnas Hakel, every day I'm making a hakel with him. Chokolo Yavar, every single day. So I've made that hakel with him every single day we now finished our 8th year. So he always lives with hakel because we call it his hakel. So over the past 8 years, every day we do his hakel. And we surround him, it's a hakel, we're surrounding him with such kedusha that he's a Rebbe Shliach in CPS, in the public school, and all is wonderful. Anyway, so I thought that was just a really great thing to tell people that I don't know who they are, and I don't know what they need to hear, because I love it, and because I use it, and because it works. I'm selling you something that works. Why am I selling? Because sometimes we're I thought it was a beautiful point. Michal said, we know Chassidus and we learned Chassidus. I'm assuming everyone here did. If, by the way, you don't understand something I'm saying, or I should speak in more English, I'm very good at speaking only in English. That's what I do most of my teaching. But so let me know. I'm assuming I'm, speaking to a crowd of people that have heard all these terms and concepts. But a lot of times we learn it and it's inspiring or not. It touches us or not. But then we keep moving because what does that really have to do with my life? I'm just being the good person and learning. And it's on my spiritual checklist. It has a lot to do with your life. It's actually very interesting. I learned with someone. I don't remember what we started learning. Just someone I learn with once a week. A Lubavitcher woman, very spiritual woman. And we're learning this and that. And she's always trying to find the right thing. And then we were learning. She decided she wanted to learn Shar Yichud Emunah. Right? Not usually what I learn with someone, but no problem. And we're learning it. And then she was like, nah, then I'm not going to say what it is. But someone wrote a book, one of these very user-friendly Hasidic books. Let's learn that. I'm like, whatever you want. We went to that. And we went there for a week or two. And she's like, no, we have to go back to Shar Yichud. Why do you have to go back to Shar Yichud? Is there anything when you're learning in Shar Yichud Emunah that you're going to think, oh, yeah, right, that. You know what Shar Yichud Emunah does for you? It immerses your brain in Chassidus. It immerses your brain in the not really relevant to me. Maybe you're going to find the relevance. Maybe you're not. I always find it relevant, but whatever, I'm funny. But, it's immersing your brain in something that you can think has no practical, a lot of sichos have a lot of practical application. You're not going to find the practical application so fast. Don't worry about it. What you're going to find is, as you learn, your mind gets more and more aligned with Hasidus, with godliness. And then you start looking at the world differently. And then you start looking at the world, and then you see your high functioning Down syndrome son, and you're like, oh yeah, that's really a victim. It's just you make these weird clicks because your brain is aligning with a different plane. So when we're looking at this idea of the Rebbe, Levushim, we could be like, okay, that's fine, that's beautiful, that's inspiring. It isn't inspiring. I've heard it, I haven't heard it, I like it, I don't like it, and then we move on. Okay, no, don't move. Don't move. It's very hard for our generation. Sit still. Stop. Don't move. Think about it. And then think of something that you don't like about yourself. Some of you might have a laundry list, and some of you might say, I don't go there. So you don't need the laundry list, but it's wise to know. We could put it in prettier words. We could say how you'd like to liberate yourself, But whatever it is, find that piece and say, Alter Rebbe, I'm going to give you a chance. Alter Rebbe, or it's my Rebbe, the Rebbe, Alter Rebbe, I'm going to experiment. No, you say, maybe I'm going to take it on faith. You're going to say, no, maybe I'm a little skeptical. No problem. Be skeptical. Experiment. I'm gonna like try. Is it really possible? I'm already whatever. I mean, I'm 56. Can I change? I haven't deeply ingrained limitations that I've re-limited myself with for so many years. The Rebbe says that's the craziness of this. That's the Rebbe doesn't say craziness. The Rebbe says that's in the quote, the deep secret of this. That's the deep secret. The deep secret is it works. A person could say, wow, so how come they didn't tell me this when I was 12 or 10 or 15? Well, maybe they did. Maybe you've heard this before. Maybe you heard it and didn't think of it as something you were changing, or maybe you've done it so many times and it really works and you'd love to share your experiences. I can definitely say for myself, before the mimer, just stretching myself in this way, before I learned the mimer, I already saw how this works. It's just you, at so many times in my life where I challenged myself to get out of my box, to get out of my limitations. And a lot of times when you're sitting in that box, the box's walls seem very, very like looming, strong, like confining, and your vision, or at least my vision, I don't have to put on you my problems, but my vision is, oh wow, this is going to be a really hard box to get out of, and I'm going to try, but this is going to be really tough because this is a really, stark box here. This is really intense, those thick walls. And what I generally found, strangely enough, was that it was actually a really fast process most of the time. It was a really fast process. And when I learned this mimer, quite many years after working on these things, I was like, oh, that must be why. In the most practical things, in the most small things, in the most big things, when you really say, I can change. I'm not stuck. I can make myself to be whatever I want to be, and I don't have to limit myself to the fact that I've been doing it like this for a long time. I think Miriam said yesterday, the definition of insanity is keep doing the same thing that doesn't work and wondering why it doesn't come out different. Like, hey, I keep doing it, and how come I still keep getting the same not such great results? We can change. We have that power in our hands. So that's a really stark thing that I really love and I wanted to share. Sure.
So is that
remind me of your name or tell me your name. Geula. Okay, so you have to remind me because I didn't know there was a Geula, but I remember your name.
Yeah, is this like a real change or it's
revealing what was always in there, or a superficial change?
Right, I'm saying I think it's more superficial. So you're saying it's like
the Rebbe says it's real.
So it's actually changing.
It's actually changing, and that's why the Rebbe says it's such a deep secret, because the Rebbe says, according to Tanya, you're not supposed to be able to do this. That's like how the Rebbe writes it. Like in Tanya, a Beinoni, like I gave it, they weren't my own examples. They were the Rebbe. The Rebbe says a Beinoni could work on his midos, when can I know how we get to be that Beinoni, and Moichin is for Mashiach, and yet it works. The Rebbe says that's his point, and yet it works. And this is what the Alter Rebbe meant by the deep secret. It's a deep secret, but the Rebbe spills all the beans. So, I think of that sometimes, like, hey, all those holy Hasidim, they were far holier, like 100%. But we get the deep secrets. We get all these deep secrets. And, we go back to, crushing the crown jewel because we got to revive that son. Well, got to bring Mashiach. So I don't know if you guys are holding there, but we're pouring the deep secrets on you. So yes, it actually creates real change. And I've seen it personally myself in really cool ways. It's just like, just do it. That thing that's not you, but do it. And like you think, okay, do it for the next 5 years. Nah, it sometimes happens so fast. You just do it, and then you change. And it's like I said, it's to me like such a a liberating thing. It's truly liberating because we truly have boxes. And sometimes we don't like our boxes. Well, sometimes we pretend we do, but underneath that pretending, we still don't really like our boxes. And you're not stuck. You're not stuck. What's your name?
Shayna.
Shayna.
What about
Your memories?
That-
How can you
that-
change if you're saying you're controlled by your past?
It's been a long time. And it's so in our memory, in my memory.
That you don't think you could shift from it.
Or even if I'm
You-
shifting, I still keep having that. Or you say maybe it takes time.
Well, like give me an example. You don't have to give me a personal example. You can make up one. You're saying like someone who's always cruel, even if they're acting kind in their memory, they're like, no, I'm not supposed to be generous and nice and warm. Why am I doing this?
Yeah, something like that.
I didn't find when I do it myself that it takes that long. Maybe again, I don't want to make up my own tyrants. You know, everything I said so far was in the mimer. Once I start answering your question, I could start making up my own stuff. Maybe the answer I'm making up is the deep secret is how the levush interacts with your core, with who you really are, your neshama. Like whatever you learn, you know, the Rebbe has certain favorite themes. So definitely a huge theme of the Rebbe is atzmos. The Rebbe's like atzmos. Can I use the word obsessed? You know, like so into everywhere. And you can see if you learn enough, like you sort of know already, oh, I know where it's going. Oh, I know where it's going. Because everyone goes there. So etzem core, so when we learn about ourselves, if you learn about yourself, you wouldn't recognize yourself. You know, like that's me. That's I don't know. I don't recognize that person. How the Rebbe describes me, how the Rebbe describes us at our core. But that's what we are. And just a wonderful thing imagining when Mashiach comes and all the other junk gets discarded and we actually are living at that level and we'll like be like, whoa, get to know myself here. This is amazing. So maybe because of that, maybe the levush is interacting with your etzem. And because of that, there's a power there that's far bigger, Shayna, than you think you are. So you think you're conditioned and you have muscle memory and you have whatever. Some people have their traumas and their thises and their that's, and we all do. And then there's a piece of it that's bigger than all that. Like sometimes we can make ourselves very small sometimes. It's actually interesting. I was thinking now, before I came to the farbrengen, I opened up to the Igros, which I always do, and sometimes see and sometimes don't see the connection, but whatever. It was a very beautiful letter, but I'm thinking, Shane is saying, the Rebbe said something that I thought was so powerful. Maybe this is for someone. Maybe it's for Shane. The Rebbe says, you should know you're not a yachid, you're a rabbin. Meaning, what the Rebbe was talking about there was, each one of us is so powerful. We look at ourselves, I mean, you might not. You might look at yourself as really big. And you'd be like, no, my problem is I think I'm too big. Most people in the world, their problem is they think they're too small. And that might resonate, or it might not. But most of us have all of these things that make us feel smaller than we really are. And the Rebbe says, you're not a yachid. Don't think of yourself as this little private, personal individual. No, I'm private, personal. I have some, as Michal was describing, I have some job. I sleep in a basement. Nobody knows me. I walk on the streets and feel like I'm under a mask, under a bag, incognito. Nobody wants to know me. Feel so invisible. In New York, they train people not to make eye contact with each other. So you're really invisible. And the Rebbe said, hello, can you throw away that bag? Can you throw away that mask? Yachid, you're not a yachid. You're not an individual. You're a rabbin. You're huge. And the Rebbe keeps giving us that same message. Your problem is you don't know how big you are. Well, what am I supposed to do about it? The Rebbe says, thank you for asking. You're supposed to change the world. I'm supposed to change the world? Yeah, if you've learned anything from the Rebbe, you know you are supposed to change the world. Well, I can't change the world. The Rebbe says, sorry, start moving. Now this year I had the Sukkos twice. I don't know if this is a compliment to myself or a sad thing to say, but this was the first time, and I've been on shlichus for, I don't know, 34 some years, that I specifically took women to the Rebbe. I guess I was Hakel inspired, or my son in Springfield, who's been on shlichus maybe 7 years inspired, because he does it every year. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I twice did it this year. It was very, very special. I felt very, very blessed I was able to do it. And so to do that, I actually had to I did homework. I researched about 770. It was really, great experience for me being Chabad all my life and all that. But I don't know. I gave them the tour. So I, prepared a lot for the tour. So something that was very powerful, was actually very interesting. The first time I came, the women were modern Orthodox. And I took them to all the spots in 770. And I'm telling them, one of them was she's very intuitive, very spiritually intuitive. So for that, I say something super cool. So we came in the middle of the summer. That's the time you take people. You don't take people now. But you take people in the middle of the summer. And so I took people, the first people I took were dead summer, empty. Second time it was already the last Sunday before Rosh Hashanah. It was a little much, but it was okay. We handled it. I said, come on, girls, you're here for a month. These ladies are here for one prayer, please. Anyway, so she said, I just thought that was very interesting. Nothing to do with what I'm talking about. I'm rambling. We were in 770, and one of the women said to me afterwards we were talking, taxi and whatever, what did you experience? What did you think? And she said, when I was in 770, I tried to get if it was during a tefillah, but I don't think it was. She used a word I never heard of before. Of course, I sort of pretended I knew what she was talking about. But you're younger, you probably know what she's saying. She said it felt like a rave. That was the word she used. She said it felt like a rave. She said, there's nobody in 770. Okay, this is dead summer. There's nobody there. She said, I felt this rave. I felt like the floor's pulsating. And I looked down and I saw the Rebbe, and I saw around the Rebbe just people are just dancing around the Rebbe, and it was unbelievable. Because she doesn't know anything from anything, really. And I thought what she was talking about was exactly the spot where the men dance after davening. When I spoke to her later, I don't know if it was exactly that spot. I don't want to give false testimony here. But it was, so anyway, this very sensitive person. I said, so tell me, you're sensitive, me, what do I know? Where else did you feel that? She said the other place where she felt that energy was, if you're going to 770, 770, and you walk down. So I'm saying, this is the guy. I was thinking they'd be really inspired. This is a place of dollars. This is the handle of the door. All the stuff you always tell people. You hold the handle. And nice, beautiful, beautiful. So we're down the hall. I said, this is the room. The room, that small zal, whatever part of the yeshiva. That's the room where Basi Lagani, Tafshin Yadalav was fed. That's the farbrengen. And I said, you're of course there were men there. So we pretended we didn't notice. And I said, I said right here. We were standing here in the Cheder Sheni, if you know what I'm talking about. And I said, right here. This is where the Rebbe said. This is where the Rebbe said his first, and it's Basi Lagani, the one I said his first inaugural address as Rebbe. So she said to me afterwards, she didn't even connect it to what I said, because I guess she didn't hear it, but she said, I felt something in that room. So intense energy in that room, I've never felt. It was so intense. So now I did this twice. So the second time I told the ladies, I brought someone very spiritual last time, and she felt it in this room. But so I'm in this place, and it awed me both times. I'm like, this is where it started. Any of you seen the room? It's where women aren't supposed to go, right? Okay. It's small. It's the first room you walk in. If you would go from the maskir, if you would go straight, you walk down that hall, and it's part of the zal, the yeshiva, whatever. It's a room that you would think could hold 300 people if they were all standing, but if you see the pictures, there were tables. So were there 300 people in that first farbrengen? I don't know. But you can say exactly here, and it was so cool how this is where the Rebbe sat. If you go into the WLCC room, they'll show you the mic. Both times we couldn't get into the WLCC room, it's fine. But this is where the Rebbe sat. This is where the Rebbe gave his address to the world. The Rebbe is speaking to maybe 300 people. Chabad then was maybe 50 families, 50 refugees. 50 immigrants from Russia. They're in, and so who are the other 250 people? I don't know. Maybe there were some Lubavitchers like in Montreal then, or that came in, curious people. And like we know the story, we know the mimer. This is the mimer where the Rebbe says, "That's it. We're doing it, guys." Now we know this. The Rebbe, in those days, he was like young. Chabad was like very, very, very small. So you hear different things from different people that were there. Some guy that came out of curiosity stayed and became a chassid. Another guy that came out of curiosity said he thinks he's Mashiach. You know, but it was so palpable what the message the Rebbe was saying. So the Rebbe said it then. You're a yachid, guys. You don't have the luxury of choice of being a yachid. You're in the Dor HaShvi. You're bringing Mashiach. I think of it when I'm by Simchas Beis HaShoeva. So people have different feelings. I love Simchas Beis HaShoeva. And I always think like, okay, I'm taking in Simcha and Chayes for a year. Just fill me in. Yesterday at a certain point, I was so sick. I was like, I never think this. I'm like, I should really leave. And I'm like, no, yes, be normal. Why would I be normal? I don't know. I just sort of
We've all been through that.
You've been through that at a point or another. I just like sort of like sat down for a few minutes. I was just like, okay. And then like Hashem did a miracle and it went away for the last half hour after being like sick for 3 hours. But whatever. I still said, I don't care. I know I'm taking Simcha and Chayes for a whole year. It's worth it. It's a little hard, by the way, you should know when you see like all the guests, like the Israelis or, you know, like I realized at a certain point many years ago, all these people come from homes. They all have like normal beds, normal showers, normal foods. As they say, vegetables that actually taste like vegetables, not plastic. Like, you know, like, and it really is a, like putting it all on the side because there's something here you can only get here. So I can't say my conditions are as bad, but still, it's schlepping. I also have a normal home, Baruch Hashem, and it's schlepping, but it's like, but I know I can only get this here. So I'm envisioning here, so I'm Simchas Beis HaShoeva, and my standard vision is, as the Rebbe says, that all the Rebbeim are dancing with us. So I think of like the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid. I think of like all the Rebbeim and the Hasidus they taught us. And I'm like, they're seeing all this craziness. You know, like you think of like, you know, I don't know. You don't have to know a lot of Hasidus. Think of Kuntres Umayim, right? So you think of Iskafia. And you imagine the Rebbe Rashab here seeing what's going on in this craziness. And I'm thinking, what are they thinking? They're thinking, we love it. We love this. We love this. Because this is what you guys need. And every Rebbe, every leader, every Rosh B'nai Yisrael, he gave that door what they needed. It's not like the Rebbe is a renegade, is changing the direction of Chabad. The Rebbe, all the Rebbeim, it's one continuum, it's one neshama, it's one energy. And now, when you're in the Dor HaShvi and you're bringing Mashiach, and you need to, it's like I look at these streets and I'm thinking, only the Rebbe. You guys take it as normal. I just, for I'm also in Chamadin. I don't know if I can say I remember, but I remember like the Rebbe started, I don't know, 81, maybe 82. Until then, Chabad was like everyone else. Simchas Beis HaShoeva meant you were in a sukkah and you farbrengen. And then maybe at a certain point you danced in the sukkah. And the Rebbe came out and said, we're going on the streets. We're conquering the world. The streets have to dance. You're going to dance and those streets are dancing. That's what Simchas Beis HaShoeva means. So if you've grown up with this and you think, oh, this is Chabad l'Dairei Dairos, it's not Chabad, it's been Chabad since the 80s. That might seem to you like a long time ago. It's Chabad since the 80s. It's like we're holding now that you need to be so pumped up, so full of chayas, so full of simcha, so full of, as I look, again, this is my vision of it, Jewish pride, Jewish stolz, Jewish like that's it. We go out and we're the powerhouse of the world. It's like, whoa, what ego? The Rebbe says it's called viniflinu. You know, viniflinu is we're so blessed. We have something so powerful. And the Rebbe says, and yeah, a lot of responsibility. Because I'm not giving it to you for you to feel all this power coursing through your veins and have this really awesome experience and go to sleep at 6 in the morning. No, I'm giving it to you so you You're a yachid, you're a rabbi, you change the world. Have you felt that? I mean, I'm sure maybe not this seems like that's how you like, or, I mean, I don't know how many of you have friends that are not Chabad. So I don't know if you've seen the difference, or you felt that in yourself, the sense of like, I gotta change the world. I don't know what that means, but I gotta do something because I definitely know it's what I'm supposed to be doing. Gula? I have two Gulas sitting next to each other.
I think that this theme is like repeated a lot. That the Rebbe, like, I guess, expects a lot from us, and we need to change the world. And I think every time I hear it, I feel like panic.
That's normal. That's a good sign. That means you're actually thinking about it for real. If you hear it and you say, "Oh, that's nice," then you're not processing. If you're saying like, "Oh no," that means you're hearing it. So that's good. That's a good step. The next step is to say, as we say, a hayra is an asinas koyach. Whenever the Rebbe tells you something to do, I definitely sometimes get answers from the Rebbe where I'm like, and then it's like a hayra is an asinas koyach. If the Rebbe is telling you to do something, asking you to do something, pleading with you to do something, he's giving you the power. I remember at once we're praying. This doesn't sound like so intense then now, but then it did. You know, I was young. So it was by farbrengen. It must have been one of the 2 years. I had 2 years as a chus of being here in Crown Heights before we went on shlich. I'm not from Crown Heights. I'm from Baltimore. So I had 2 years, like my post-seminary year, and then my first year of marriage. So that was in Memches Memtes, 88 and 89. So I had that the chusin of like, you know, every Shabbos, Baruch Hashem. What life was like then for me was I would wake up very, very, very early Shabbos morning because I wanted to hear the farbrengen. So to actually hear a Shabbos farbrengen, I think in the women's section in my head there was about maybe 4.5 spots that worked. That you could not just hear you could hear the Rebbe's voice, but I wanted to actually hear the words. You also need a lot of other like tools to do it, but we'll put that on the side. So I would come very, very, very early to 770 to get my spot. When I started, I had one spot, and then I realized, no, I want to do it. I got my spot, like that spot that I could actually really hear. Baruch Hashem, I had 2 years of that's the chus of hearing the Rebbe's farbrengen. So I remember once, I don't remember the date. I don't remember anything. My brain's very fuzzy. But I remember there was talking about something, a certain sefer. There was it was probably like the Rebbe loves like round numbers. So it's probably some 100 years from, 200 years from, whatever. I don't remember. And there was talking about this, and in my head, I was panicking because I was like, oh no, the Rebbe's going to put something else on us. Like I saw it coming so straight. For sure, this farbrengen was going to end with the Rebbe saying, "So we're all going to now learn." I mean, this is pathetic. I remember it was when I was single or married. No, I was married. I remember talking to my husband about it. It's like my first year of marriage. I didn't have kids. I taught. I had, as I look back at it now, nothing on my plate, and I was like, "No way, I can't." And then the Rebbe continued, and he didn't. So after, I guess I was talking to my husband about it, or someone, probably my husband. He was like, we were all thinking that. I was like, me, no, we all thought that was coming. But whenever the Rebbe does that, it's like the Rebbe says, I'm sure you know that's the Rebbe said, that whenever he wants to give us something, to tell us to do something, no, to give us something, the Rebbe thinks, like, so how many people are really going to do it? And I don't remember, maybe somebody here remembers the Yechidus where the Rebbe said this to someone. I don't remember what the number was, the percentage, maybe 50%. Like, if I know a certain percentage, they're not going to do it, I can't give it to them. Like, it's not, the Rebbe tells you to do something and you don't do it, you're worse off than the Rebbe never said in the first place. But this is so important. But this is going to give you so much. But this is transforming worlds. Yeah, but if you don't do it, you're worse off. So I don't remember what percentages the Rebbe said. If it's 50%, a certain percentage, they're not going to do it. Stoke, forget it. But then just think of all the things where the Rebbe said, yeah, and you could also have these like panic moments, the sense of like how much the Rebbe wants from us, More like
how little I'm doing.
How much the Rebbe wants, which means maybe how little I'm doing, or maybe which means how much I want to grow. And how much I want to say, okay, let me get dressed in some garments. okay, maybe the garment is a garment called Kabbalas Ol. That's a really cool, hard garment. Maybe the garment is bittul. Maybe the garment is belief. And just saying, okay, Rebbe, if this is what you want, and if you, with all your Abbas Yisrael, okay, he says, I know you. It's not all that you're doing.
I mean, the road's just demanding a lot of us. So even if you're doing a lot, you still can feel like nothing. Yeah.
I mean, I was saying this to my daughter this morning. Yeah. I was saying to my daughter, it's like 6 a.m. We're walking back, and I was just like, I don't know why I said this to blow her brain. Somebody said, you should know. You know what a lot of the Bachram are doing right now? The men, my husband, that they're getting up, lining up right now to for the Rebbe's Lulav and Israel. And then I said, then other people are of course, and the other people are going to be on the streets because you get kicked off the street, but they're going to be dancing on the sidewalk for the next 2 hours. And then other people are taking the subway now to Manhattan because you want to catch the crowd to Ben Shlomo and Esther. We're going to sleep. We're the, yes, Lubavitch Guild, or however. But then
I sometimes wonder, like in all of these statements, like maybe for women things are a little different. I wonder. No, because you hear these reticent stories. I wonder if I don't know.
For some things, yes, and some things, no. My kids, like, they're very surprised how my kids look at me. I shouldn't tell you, but they're like, you don't do 3 Prakim Rambam? I'm like, no, I actually don't. I take the privilege of being a woman. You don't do Shnai Mikra Targum? No, never in my life. I never even had a desire to do that. Never crossed my radar. So
never had a desire to do it either.
Right, but guess what? It's on their radar. It's not on mine. So those are like the types of things where you could say that the Rebbe. Yes, conquer as a woman. Absolutely, the Rebbe wants you to conquer the world. I mean, if you think of I'm sure many of you either you grew up on shlichus or you've been by Chabad houses in your summers or whatever, shlichus here, wherever, each one of you. So you've probably seen lots of different shluchim in action. And very often it's very clear that one of them is the more makarev, whatever it is, whatever word you want to use. And I'd say about 50% of the time it's a woman. Has anyone here seen this besides me? That you've seen that shlucha who's like making it happen? I'm not saying her husband's not doing things. Of course not.
Maybe you're just one to
Of course. As I was saying yesterday at my farbrengen, it's sexist. I think women just have such a huge advantage, innately and by many other things. But so
what you're saying, like maybe not the women, like one of the the students who ever speak at rallies, one of the things that really gets me every time, wherever constantly says a nilo or a needle. There is constantly says a boy and girl. It doesn't just say children. It doesn't say Jews.
And you know that, like the Rebbe says by Tzos Hashem, he always says there has to be. He said, like, where's the girl? There always has to be a picture of the girl. Where's the girl?
The entire cover because everyone looks like where's the girl on the cover. And they said it came out better in the end, but.
I was actually, when I took those women, that's my first group, the modern Orthodox, and I was telling them stories, at each spot. And of course, I had to think advanced stories that would work. So I was telling them, Yehudis Engels says beautiful stories of, in like the 1950s. So she says how she was, her father used to be before he became Chabad, he was from the Malachim. I don't know if you know that sag, where if the people there's a woman, they go like this. And then somehow they she doesn't know what happened. She was a child and her father became connected to the Rebbe. Right. Exactly. So she has 2 beautiful stories. I'm sure she has more, but 2 that I know of. One where she says how when she was a little girl, this was going back to that original farbrengen room I'm talking about. So how the room was set up was there was the room, that maybe could hold 300 people. And then there's a room that maybe could hold you'd think 20, maybe 50 in our stand, maybe 50. Anyway, that's for the women work. And she was I'm sitting on top of the bookshelf in that room. And the Rebbe was giving a kashal bracha at the end of, I guess, the Yantiv. And as her father went by, he said, you know, is your daughter here? Where's your daughter? And father pointed, he said, bring her Kaishal Bracha. And she came, her father went, he got her from the bookshelf, and she came and she got Kaishal Bracha. So another time she was, this was when, after they grew out of that space, I learned this, don't think I knew this forever. I learned this literally to prepare for this. Next to what was that original 770 was like a driveway. They called it the shalash. It was an empty driveway, which I guess they bought, and that's where they would hold the farbrengen. They had maybe a tarp over it sometimes.
It was very.
And that was the farbrengen. And so she was like, that was where the farbrengens were, and this was at that time the farbrengen. Every Shabbos Rochem and Yom Tovim. So she was like, back to the farbrengen. She's a little kid, and she was like sort of playing outside the Rebbe's office. And the Rebbe came by after the farbrengen, and the Rebbe said to her, "Did you say l'chaim by the farbrengen?" And she said, "No." And the Rebbe said, "Why not?" And she said, "Because girls don't say l'chaim." And the Rebbe said, "Why not?" And she didn't have an answer. So that was Shabbos Levarchim. A month later, Shabbos Levarchim, she's this now by the farbrengen. She's all the way in the back, you know, where the women were behind the men. And in the middle of farbrengen, during the part of the singing, a man came over to her and gave her a cup. He said, "The Rebbe said for you to say l'chaim."
Wow.
So this is 1950s the Rebbe. I said this to the woman. Now these are modern Orthodox women, and these were like, you know, like women that Baruch Hashem, they come from more affluent families. So one of the women there, I don't know if it's just, she said when they go, she was so taken aback. Today, 2023. So when she and her husband go to Israel, they visit all these like, you know, great rabbis. She said she's never able to go in the room. She said they don't let the women in. So she stays outside, and her husband goes in to all these like, you know, big chashava people that I guess are seeing her husband because he gives them a lot of money. You know, it's like it's and the Rebbe in the 1950s is saying, girls don't say l'chaim. I only want to inspire the men. I only need the men. When you think of the army, I once had this situation with someone who was trying whatever he was doing, but I was thinking about like the Rebbe's armies. I was thinking, you know, there's the army of the Bachrim. There's, of course, the army of the children. And, of course, there's the army of the shulchan. And, of course, there's the army of the women. So, as a woman in the army, do you have to do every single thing on that Rebbe wish list? It depends who you are. It depends what answers you get from the Rebbe. I remember once, this was like after some baby was born. Don't know which baby, don't know which year. But I usually gave myself like a little break after I had a baby, you know, a little break with whatever, I don't even remember what the break was. And it was probably some school-related crisis I had to write in. I'm sure this wasn't like a week after I had a baby. And the answer was like, why aren't you doing your shiurim? I'm like, because I just had a baby. But like somehow the Rebbe probably knew I just had a baby. But the Rebbe was like, so what does that mean? What I think it means is, who's doing a favor for who? I'm thinking, Rebbe, you're so lucky. I'm such a wonderful chassid. I do all this for you. And the Rebbe's like, all right, if you want to think about it like that, you know, you have a crisis, you have a need. Why aren't you doing your shiurim? I just had a baby. There's this I know. Why are you doing your shiurim? Who's doing a favor for who? Who has the need here? Who needs this so desperately that I'm telling Klal Yisrael to do it, knowing many of my chassidim or some of my chassidim or a few of my chassidim won't, knowing they're worse off because they don't and I told them to. But I'm still telling you to, because you need it.
Two things. Firstly, if you think about Mishpia, which I think is one of the Rebbe's greatest gifts to us, like it's one of the very few things the Rebbe said about Kashanach. It's like a personal favor to the Rebbe. What the Rebbe wants from us is that we should have a Mishpia. Like the Rebbe's giving us a gift and telling us, do me a favor and give yourself this gift. This, what we're talking about also reminds me of 3 years ago. I speaking of Mishpia, I told her I have to speak to Rav. I have a question for him, but I'm afraid to speak to him because what if he tells me no? So she said that the Rav will tell you what the halacha is. The halacha, the Torah is meant to, it tells you the way you're supposed to be and it keeps you happy. So even if the Rav tells you no, it's telling you Torah, and that's really what you need to hear. That's really what's going to make you happy.
The wife must be.
He told me no. He told me no. And in the end, I saw that he was, I mean, not that Torah meets my stomach, but he was made it right and made it last.
Yeah, that's the point. That's exactly the point. He told me no, and I even saw he was right. But we need that voice of authority because there's. Are you talking about? You're talking about like Rivka was saying about like adding, doing. It's not. Is it halacha that I have to have on my head chitas and some version of Rambam and all the other learning and mitzayim and the yachid is a rabbim and transforming my sviva and illuminating wherever I go, and I must have my good card somewhere and always remember and be on and look the person in the eye and smile, and if they told me their name, remember to use it. And like, come on, can I just be an individual and not have to be saving the world? And this is the greatest gift for us. There's a sikha that says that.
Yeah.
Don't tell me about it. It's funny thing is because I remember even when I was in seminary, and this was shortly after Rambam came out, and there were one or two girls that were doing Shalosh Baruchim, and I always wondered why. But trust me, I never asked them. Never asked them. I did start recently, and it's that my kids wonder. I actually know a number of women that do Perek Echad, which doesn't take that long if you just do what a lot of people do and read it. But I didn't want to do that, so I did something different. I bought volume by volume, the most Naim Rambam, because I said this to my husband, I said this to my sons. They were like shocked. I said, I don't understand the Rambam when I just read it. And they're like, you don't know what it means? Like how mommy? I'm like, no, it's a lot of words that are very contextual to whatever that is, and I don't know all those contextual words. So I really like Musnaim, and I really like the footnotes. And what? It's not about so without the footnotes. Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Because if you're doing Rambam, Perek, or such, you're talking, treat yourself to the farm.
But anyway, so I treat myself more. I don't have any. I love it because I have no. This is me. This was my own idea. Why I did my own and not Perek Echad, I don't know, because I didn't want pressure, and I don't have to do this. I am truly being a volunteer. I have no obligation to do this. So instead of putting myself in a box of having to do a Perek, and I want to learn it, and I want to actually really learn it, I say every day a certain amount of time, and whatever I cover, I cover. So I have no sense of covering ground. I just have a sense of learning. And and how I do it, I do Hebrew and English, because I figure over time I'm going to learn all these contextual words. And it's and how should I explain it? And sometimes I give myself a break and don't do it. And when I do it, I feel how it's feeding me. I feel that being fed. When I learn the Hasidus, not always, because there it's an obligation, right? But so many times I feel it. When I say Tehillim, I say a lot of Tehillim. As you get older, I think it's something that happens to you. I feel how it's feeding me. What I started recently, this is very recently, I don't know if it's going to stop. I don't know if it's sustainable. This has been since Chai Elul. I've been working on davening. Now, it's not the first time in 56 years I've worked on davening. And like it comes and goes away. Maybe nobody else ever has it, but it comes and goes. But Baruch Hashem, since Chai Elul, I don't know, Hashem, it's a gift of Hashem. I'm grateful. I don't know if it's sustainable to work on davening, but every time when I finish, I feel it. I feel how it helped me. I feel the difference because it's so new, fresh, and I don't know if I'm going to keep it up. But I really feel it. Now, something I have as an advantage that I've seen many of you don't have is many children with many needs. So very often I do things I don't want to do because I want to give a zechus to that child. I almost always nowadays link most of my haflatzas to some kid. This is for this kid. This is for this. So I will share with you one haflatza that again have taken on and off many times. That's, I think, the thing of a garment. You can take it off also. But I've maintained this for a while because I'm thinking of a certain child. It might not sound so amazing, but unfortunately, in my smallness, it's hard. I don't open up my phone until after I finish davening and learning. It is so hard. It is so hard. The fact that it's hard is sort of a pathetic statement on me, but it's really hard. But if I'm ever going to crash, I'm always thinking of this child. And I'm like, no, this is for him. He doesn't know I'm doing it for him. He doesn't know why he no longer is attached to his phone. But I know it's worth it. It's worth it. So it's kept me motivated in doing it this time for much. Yeah, I've done this many times. And I'm like, I don't. And it's hard. Or usually it's just a davening. I don't know why I added learning. I don't know what I was thinking.
Doesn't it like add more guilt if you're not doing the selective attached to a child?
Guilt, Jewish guilt could be a wonderful thing. I don't know if that's a controversial
Like
statement.
Pressure.
It's guilt can be very negative. Guilt can be very limiting. Guilt can be coming from a very unhealthy place. And yet we see in Tanya that when we describe the Rosh Hashanah, what's the definition of a Rosh Hashanah? Someone who sins without guilt. That's the whole difference between a Rosh Hashanah and a Rosh Hashanah. In essence, as we would understand, as we would see it, his neshama left him. But how do you see that the neshama left? But what you see is he sins guilt-free. So what does that tell you about guilt then? Guilt-free means you're a Rosh Hashanah?
I think it's in the moment though, because there's a difference between like feeling guilt in the moment and then feeling guilt and then after it's over.
So I think I would go back to what Miriam mentioned about the mashpia, which I agree with her. It's a beautiful gift the Rebbe gave us. He forced us to have a beautiful gift. There's so many things in Yiddishkeit that do that. Again, as a mother, I think about this all the time with my children. If I was not a Yid, the religious Yid, I would not have the number of children I have. I can guarantee you that. I have no questions. I know me a little bit, and I know what it takes to be a mother. I would not have this number of kids. So why do I have them? Because I'm a firm Jew. So what tremendous gift Hashem gave me with each one of those child that now, because I'm old, I can look back and think, wow, Hashem, thank you. And I think like, my gosh, could you imagine if I only had, what do they have in America? 1.5? Maybe we'll stretch it to 2.5. Maybe we'll stretch it to 3. Could you imagine if it was Hanamiri, Mendy, Naftali? No, Yosef Yitzchak, no, whoa, how poor I would be. Right. You're talking about the kids or the parents. I had once a friend. I still have a relationship to her. Ooh, I was supposed to call her. She's on my list. I haven't looked at my list since I got to Fahrenheit. This woman I've known for years. She was my neighbor like 30 years ago. And she's the type of Jew that would like to fast on Yom Kippur, but doesn't actually. And we're very close. And once she came to my house, I remember this very clearly. I mean, she moved away many years ago, but that time she was my neighbor. It was Sunday. Okay, it's Sunday and you have children. So now think of it far more intense, because that's what my house looked like. So here's my house. I have a bunch of kids jump. During the week, my house was immaculate because I had a babysitter that was home all day. But this was Sunday, which means there's also Shabbos before. So my last time babysitter in the house was Friday, and she's coming tomorrow. So my house was a topsy-turvy disaster. I have children all over the place, making lots of noise. And she walked in for something. This woman's never been married. Never, obviously, had children. Never married. She walks into my house. She looked around. And she said to me, with all sincerity, she said, wow, you are so rich. And she meant it. And I got it. And I was like, she's, it's like, I don't know, it's just me, this cringe of like, oh no, someone's going to see my mess. I'm like, she's right, I'm so rich. Yeah, Baruch Hashem, things move on, and now my house can stay clean for long stretches. But I'm so rich. But why was I so rich? Because I was so smart? No. Because, like Miriam said, Torah gives us a certain set of guidelines that we on our own would not necessarily or for sure choose. And that's our road to riches. That's our road to joy. That's our road to the brachos. That helps us. So when you have this guilt, I think you going back to your mashpia, like we said, another nice gift that we received. You sometimes have to ask yourself, and it definitely could be coming from a negative place. It definitely could be coming from an unhealthy place. We definitely could be limited and stifled and stymied and all those other awesome words. And it definitely could be coming from Kedusha. Because again, that's the rush of Aralo. He doesn't have that guilt anymore. And I say to myself, I try to be really careful in mitzvahs because I have a very heightened sense of Jewish guilt. It's very useful for me. It's a very good tool. It gets me to do things that otherwise I might slack off on because I'm human. It is the, Woody Allen, the stereotype of the Jew is this like neurotic guilt. The fact that it's a stereotype means there's some truth in it. So we have a tendency. You have a tendency and you're using it in Kedusha. You have a tendency and using it in Klipa. That's already, speak to your mashpia to understand where it's coming from. And is this good or is this not good? But in a good way, in a healthy way, there's a reason the Eibusher gave us that personality type. It helps us move. It helps us grow. It helps us be more careful and take on things that otherwise we wouldn't.
Just from before you said that the woman felt like the did you go into your
No, you can't. I don't have those strings.
Because you said she saw the rabbi
In 770, downstairs. We were upstairs in the women's section. I did nothing that no commoner can't do. I couldn't even get into WLCC room. Whatever. I'm not gonna say anything.
I'm not.
But everywhere I went, anyone could go. Of course, the second time the men did say, this is a Zal. I'm like, oh, we didn't realize. Yeah. My son did tell me the times when I could actually go in and men aren't there. It's like the lunch break, but it just didn't work out the time, so I ignored it. I mean, the women did want to know if they could go downstairs. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. Like, why not? I'm like, no, whatever. We'll skip it this time. Maybe we'll come back another time. But yeah.
How do you balance the guilt with living a joyous, being in a state of joy?
That's where I go back to that idea of speaking to understand. If it's coming from a godly place, it should not shepherd your joy. If it's not coming from a godly place, it's designed to remove your joy. But if it's coming from a godly place, it's just like any Gashmias thing in life. Sometimes we could relate more to Gashmias. If you would, I don't do any of these things, but if you would push yourself and every morning go on a run or a brisk walk or go to the gym, do you think every person that does that, they wake up in the morning, they're like, yeah, this is what I want to do? They're like, and then they do it and they feel good. All these people out there, not me, that eat healthy, it takes so much longer to eat healthy. I would do it if it took faster. But do you think they don't realize that and they have all this time? But when they push themselves and they do it, they feel so much better. I know for myself, again, I'm not eating so healthy, but when I am eating properly, which is a discipline. It's actually a discipline that's hard for me. But when I'm eating properly, I feel it in my body. I feel like I'm feeding my body real food. It's hard in our world because everything that you could easily buy and make is not real. So it's hard. But when you do it, it feels good. So when I go on Mifsayim, which I never do, but when I go on Mifsayim, afterwards, it feels so good. I know it feels good. So if we're calling the guilt, the Lubavitch guilt, the push, the vulnerability and the need for more brachos in your life, whatever is getting you there. But afterwards, when you do it, you should feel good. If you finish that and feel guilty that you didn't do more, there's something wrong going on here, But if you feel good, it's a simcha. It's a good sense. Remember once I took school to for anybody that likes museums. I happen to like museums, not art museums, but other types of museums I like. And in Chicago, there's an amazing museum called the Museum of Science and Industry. Amazing museum. For those people that want to trip to Chicago and want something to do cultural. So I once took the students to the Museum of Science and Industry, and they had an exhibit it was like not a permanent exhibit. It was one of their, like, I guess, temporary exhibits on happiness. It was an exhibit on happiness. So this is not coming to town Hasidus. This is not coming to town philosophy or theology. This is Museum of Science and Industry. So this is what science is saying about happiness. So they asked there, and it was very well done. I mean, this is Museum of Science and Industry. It's very, very, very well done. But they asked there, like, does money buy it? And again, they're talking like purely scientifically. And they said, if your basic needs are not met, yes. If you don't have shelter, if you don't have clothing, protection, food, if money's going to acquire those basic needs, it will buy happiness. You will have happiness when your basic needs are met. Once your basic needs are met, once you have those foundational things you need to survive, scientifically, they're saying money doesn't create any happiness. Okay, so obviously we all know that, but it's nice to know the world has found that out as well. But then they said, so what does create happiness? And the answer would be the same answer I would give. Stretching yourself and achieving, growing. How do we translate that in our lives? Looking at our boxes and smashing them, putting on new garments, setting a goal, saying, I don't need to be like this. I can do more. I want to do more. It's not me. Great. I'm going to make it me. I'm going to go for something bigger. And it's like a rush. It's like such a feeling. I sure hope I'm not the only one here that has this feeling. You feel this when you push yourself, when you do what you didn't want to do, and you said, no, don't tell me that. I don't want to hear about that. And then you achieve, you set your goal, you get it, and it feels so good. Yes? Okay. That's the gift the Rebbe's giving us. I mean, it's the gift Yiddishkeit gives us. We're thinking of the Rebbe and all of those additionals. But you know what? Trust me, Yiddishkeit also gives us so many things where it's like, really? And like Miriam said, I have to ask the Rav. I don't want to hear his answer. Let me not ask. Oh, his answer to actually be the right answer for me? It's not for me. It's like for God. It's for Torah. It's for Fromkeit. It doesn't work that way. No. If you're doing what the Eibishter is saying, it's custom designed for you. How can it be custom designed for me? Torah preceded this world by 2,000 years. Torah is for all the humanity. It's very interesting. I saw one of the Geulas. They were speaking about, is there life on other planets? And someone once asked the Rebbe, this was just during the time of in the 60s with the whole space race and all that. So the Rebbe was asked by someone, could there be, according to Torah, life on other planets? So the Rebbe said, that was so interesting. The Rebbe said there could be life, but not intelligent life. There could be growth, there could be moth, there could be something living, which they haven't found yet. But there could be, but they cannot have intelligent life. The Rebbe said, why not? Because there's no purpose of life without Torah. For life, there has to be Torah. Torah is the guy for life. And there can't be two Torahs. Because if Torah is emes, it's only Torah there is. So if there's life, there has to be Torah. And there has to be one Torah, which means the Torah we know. And the Torah we know works within the parameters of planet Earth. So you can't take this Torah and then put it on Mars or Jupiter or Venus or Neptune. It wouldn't work there because they're a whole different set of coordinates. So since life requires Torah, since Torah requires the parameters of planet Earth, intelligent life there can't be. Why? But why is there the same? Because you can't have life without Torah. You can't have, there'd be no purpose. There'd be no life if you didn't have Torah. Now, again, that's for mankind. That's life. We're talking about 8 billion people on this planet. There's a Torah for 8 billion people. Then we take it as Jews. And then we take it wherever whatever else we've added from that point. But if there's life, there's Torah. Torah is your guide. Torah is your gift. Torah is your gift. That would be like a huge challenge. If you could reframe whatever is on your oh no list and say, that's my gift. Should I end? Oh, okay. No.
Finally, just-
Okay. Sometimes people like delicately tell you to do that. Totally fine. I would love to do that for myself because I also have plenty of things that I do. I've got Kabbalah soul, I've got discipline. But imagine if I said, this is my gift. This is Hashem's gift to me. Like I can now, at this point in my life, look and see my children that way. And no, it's not, you know, the great martyr me, the great me who's from, and therefore, no, it's like Hashem says, I love you. I want to give you the biggest gift I can. Have children. This is my gift. So I can say that now because, and it progressed over years. It's funny. Some of my friends are like, they were the opposite. The first one for sure was a gift. It was sort of like the second, third, fourth, you know, they something like that. I'm like, I don't know. For me, I just was, I guess, very young. So I went the other direction. But imagine whatever in your life you're looking at as like, you do it or you don't, with this like, oh no, I don't need the guilt. I don't want the guilt. Why do you have to put this on my list? The burdens. And it's like, I want to reframe that. I want that to be my garment. I want to say, this is my gift, personally for me. Again, Torah was given for all mankind forever. So how can it be personally for me? Well, I mean, what are we thinking? You know, here I am. At this moment, there's, I don't know, 15 million Jews in the world. And I mean, this is the only time there have been Jews in the world and humans. So how could I say something so obviously not correct, that Torah is my gift, and every part of it that's annoying or burdensome or stresses me is part of my gift. If you think of Tanya, in the introduction to the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe starts by explaining all the reasons why Tanya shouldn't work. If you remember from like ninth grade or whenever last you looked at it, Yutes Kislevish, all the reasons why Tanya shouldn't work. And then the Rebbe basically says, but it does. But it does. I know you very well, and it does. Who is the Rebbe talking to? As the Rebbe writes in the introduction, all of us, for all the generations. So azah chutzpah, do you imagine that? The Alter Rebbe, I don't remember how many hundreds of years ago, is writing for me, living in a different continent, living a life that I don't know if then they would think we were Jewish if they saw us. Seriously, I think that sometimes, imagine the Neshamas L'mayla, they look at me, would they know I'm a Jew? Do I look like a Jew looks to them? Maybe if they saw the walls of my house, they noticed the svarim, but they saw me. What they saw me? I could be on the streets and a guy might not know I'm a Jew. Why would they know I'm a Jew? All the Rebbe writes there. I wrote all the answers to all the questions. You know my questions? What are you talking about? I know somebody, I love Tanya. I know so many people with Tanya, like, you know, one person, he was an older man, and he was a Lubavitcher that never had a beard. And at a certain point in his life, I'm talking, he was sure in his 70s then, or maybe even later, and he grew a beard. He has many children, they're all shluchim, he never had a beard. And someone said to him, what made you at this point in your life grow a beard? And he said, I started learning Tanya. Now, there's nothing in Tanya that talks about growing a beard. I've learned Tanya with people, and they've also done different things. Stop talking to boys. It doesn't talk in Tanya about not talking to boys either. But what's going on? It's a neshama thing. Like you know, the story with the Alter Rebbe and Shklov and singing the Nigun, and their neshamas opening up, and they knew the answers to their own questions. Or like I was saying before about learning with a woman, Shariach of Emunah. Why? Why does she need Shariach of Emunah? She's got a lot on her plate. She wants to learn something practical, learn something relevant. Why is she learning Shariach of Emunah? Because she felt it. Like when you put your head in that Hasidus, like it aligns. So everything in Tanya is the answers to your questions. Your questions didn't exist then. How do I stop being too attached to this device? Imagine such a life they didn't have devices. Wow. Half our stresses would be gone, right? But lots of good things we do with this as well. So the Alter Rebbe is talking about how you detached yourself from this. The Alter Rebbe is saying what your neshama needs to hear for you to be able to not be so attached. And it's Torah. So everything for you personally, though there's 50 million of us, like the whole point that the Gemara says, that Chassidus speaks about, B'shvili nivra ha'olam. B'shvili nivra ha'olam.
I was once talking about something, kind of straight up, like, you think that, like, if you wouldn't follow Torah, you would be fine. That saying that when Shem wrote the Torah, he didn't know what you would be going through and wouldn't know, like, he made the Torah for everybody besides certain women. Like,
Right. He didn't have you in mind. Didn't work. Doesn't work for this one. Right. That's true. That's the point. But we fall to the trap. Even if we're doing things, we can still fall to this very common trap of being like, I'm just such a wonderful person. The Abish are so lucky. I'm such a mysterious nefesh that I do all this, or don't do some of it, whatever. And it's like, yeah. So often I just think that line, who's doing who a favor? Or like Gula is saying, the Abisha wrote the Torah. It wasn't for you personally, individually. That's crazy, but it's true. It's true. That's what we mean. We say B'shvili nivra ha'olam. Every single person, that's a truth. When I teach Tanya to people, I speak to people, I think when they come to Tanya, I want them to have this underlying understanding. You are an neshama. You are a piece of God. You are Hashem's only child. Get that? Everything else is in details. That sense of walking around, understanding, like I was saying, a yachid, a rabbin, a person that's transforming the world, a person that's illuminating the world, a person that's changing the world. B'shvili nivra ha'olam. I'm the epicenter. Oh, you got a big ego. Maybe. Again, like everything else, does it come from klipa? Does it come from kedusha? Achrayus or zechus? But it's like that's how I'm supposed to live my life. It's that there's so many things we have in our system. You don't have to do even all of them. Do one of them. It could change your life. Yesterday we were talking about moida'ani. Imagine when you say moida'ani, stopping and thinking. I take it as a given that we all say moida'ani. Imagine what it means to stop and think. So many different things Chassidus says about moida'ani. Moida'ani is one of the things that I really love. It's actually interesting. It's in, I'm going to probably say this wrong, but I realized once, and then every time I remember it again, I was like, whoa. I believe it's the Hayom Yom of Yud Aleph Shvat. I could be wrong. Someone has a chita, so I can check. But it's a day that's like Rebbe's day. And I was like, the day that's marking Rebbe is talking about moida'ani. Talking about, in the Hayom Yom, nothing can tarnish the moida'ani of a yid. You didn't watch Negavas, your hands are dirty, bare faced, who you are, what you've been doing with your life, nothing can tarnish the moida'ani of you. So one of the things the Rebbe says about moida'ani that helps me, that I try to align myself with sometimes when I remember, is moida'ani means the Eibusher is giving you another chance. Moida'ani, you're saying to Hashem, thank you, you're giving me another day. Thank you, you're trusting me with the biggest gift in the world, the gift of life. Thank you, you're trusting me that you're going to give me another day, and I want to make the day meaningful. I want to make the day a day that I lived. There are many things like that you could think of. That works for me sometimes. Sometimes what works for me is what we say in Uva L'Tzion. Thinking about L'Tzion, we say, Shalom Neilei, whatever it is. Laheva V'Larik, Neilei Lebehala. I'm forgetting the quote, but again, when I'm focused, often of course I'm not focused, it just strikes me so deeply. What does that mean? I shouldn't be toiling for nothing. I shouldn't produce something that doesn't go anywhere. It's just like, again, it's a kav mancha, it's a guiding principle of your life. You think about it. If you think, when you say it, if you can focus and be like, I want to live a real life. I want to live that today had a purpose. I want to live that I accomplished today. Accomplished doesn't mean that everyone else in the world knows about You know, we have lots of accomplishments that no one knows. Our names aren't going up in lights. No one's going to admire us. We're going to get no strokes for it. But that's fine, hopefully. I accomplished. I know what my goal was. I know that going back to the Museum of Science and Industry, I achieved, I stretched, I grew. And when you feel that, even if there was some guilt there, pushing, prodding, you feel such good. It feels so good. There's nothing that feels as good as like, you did it, you achieved, you lived. And we all know what it means for you. From one person lived means I was patient and loving with my children. That was I lived today, and that was a real challenge. And whoa, I lived. You know, there's everyone has their own personal what their goal could be, but we all have it. And when when your life was lived today, it's a different life. It's a happy life. It's a wonderful life. It's a joyous life. It's a highestic life. And you're not a yachid, you're a Robin. Well, what world am I changing? Maybe you're changing the world inside yourself. Maybe you're changing the world in your home. Maybe you're changing the world of your people you interact with, but you're illuminating worlds.
When we say transforming the world, it sounds very big, but you can really do it in very small ways, and that makes a big difference too.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be massive.
It's like whatever it is, because you know what you need to do to transform your world. And I'm saying for a person to say, for me to transform my world, if I'm patient with my children, if I'm loving, if I don't let myself get stressed by the mess and the money, that could be transforming worlds and worlds and worlds. And it literally is. It literally is. Because you're going to be transforming a lot of Dairos' worlds as you transform those little children or that little space of your life. You're literally transforming worlds. So if you work in an office and you're calm, centered, and joyous, who knows who you're affecting? Who knows what worlds you're transforming? If you're a teacher, if preschool, if you're a babysitter, who knows what worlds you're transforming? You're dealing with people. We all have, there's a woman I know, very intelligent woman, like a doctor of, I don't know, some type of psychology, very successful, affluent woman who became a Balas Tshuva, she was probably in like her 50s, early 50s. And I was at a certain point very close to her. And I asked her, the classical question, like, why? A lot of times people are desperate and needy, so you understand why. But she wasn't. So, like, you have it all. What made you turn to Yiddishkeit? And she said to me, and again, she's a very intelligent person. I'm putting this to put the framework of the answer. She said to me, oh, I know, it was my preschool teacher. I said, really? She said, well, when I was young, there wasn't public school for, let's say, maybe I was like nursery, like 3-year-old age or something. There was no public school, but there was a religious preschool. So my parents, get me out of the house, whatever. They sent me to a religious preschool for a year. And then like after that, she went to public school. And she said she always knew she had something that she got from that preschool that was like planted inside of her. And she always felt it her whole life. And when she was in her like early 50s, she became 100% from that plant that she got in that 1 year where her parents had no choice and sent her to that religious school. So this is like a story you read, but I happen to know the lady, and it's so true. You don't know what worlds you're transforming. You deal with small children, who knows what worlds you're transforming. You deal with disinterested people, who knows what worlds you're transforming. You're nice to the bus driver, you're nice to the cashier, who knows what worlds you're transforming. When we think of worlds, we no man's in an island here. We're interacting with people all the time. And if you have a child, you have the child's teacher, you have therapists, you have the child's therapist. There's people in our life. Even like a little, I mentioned this before, this was a hafat I once took on for a while. I said, whenever anyone is like, on the phone, and if it's a person, there's a badge. If on the phone, they always say their name, they rattle off their name and then whatever else, da, da, da. So for a while, I can't say I always do it, but for a while, I told myself, remember the name, and at some point, use their name. Remember the name and use their name. Why? I don't know this person. The odds is obviously they're not Jewish. It was just to give someone a gift, you're a human. You're a person, you're human. That's it. Freely offering that. Doesn't cost you any money, doesn't really cost you any time, costs you a little sense of remembering, and who knows what life you change. I owe very often when I'm, dealing with the hassles of life and on the phone, when someone's nice and when they're not, but I pretend, I say, you were really kind, and I want to, and I start, this is when I'm really desperate, I really feel this, and sometimes I stretch a bit, but I just want you to know I really appreciate it. I know everything good comes from God, so I'm so grateful to God for this. But I know good things come through good people, so I want to thank you for being that good person that did this for me. And especially if they actually really did something for you, it's so meaningful. I can get into really deep conversations with these people on the phone. My kids joke, they're like, "Only you, Ma. You get this intimacy with some stranger on the phone." Like, it's a human being. It's a human being. There's hashgacha pratis. Why are you talking to this person from all the people that answer these calls? Why did you have this frustration and annoyance in your life that you had to make 5 phone calls about? Sometimes I forget. I had this once. I didn't remember what it was. I was like, I don't know in what area, my mortgage, my whatever, something. I had to call, and whatever, and then I had to call back, and I recognized the voice. I'm like, I had the same person twice. That doesn't make sense. Hashem is telling me something. I didn't say something last conversation I needed to say. And there was a reason, but that's very weird. That's the only time that happens to me. You don't usually get the same person twice in these types of situations, but you're talking to a human being. You can illuminate that person's life by recognizing they're human, by acknowledging their humanity, by making them feel good, by saying something and bringing the Eibishter into their world. You never know.
This summer, one of the kids came to work and it's like, "Oh, you have a new necklace." It's like, "Yeah, it was my birthday last week." And that was a conversation around that. It was just like, here's a reminder, like, for a little kid, if you mention that new necklace, you started a whole conversation. You've entered their world, and it's so meaningful to them. It's just that little noticing the necklace.
It's so true.
And it is something to remember. The thing about influencing other people, and I said the term that we use, Alma, the Alma, or something like that.
Yeah, even just a creation. Right, that's exactly what it means. Like a nobody.
Anybody in the street, just smile to anybody. Smile to actually give them that breathing.
Exactly. There's a famous Holocaust story of, maybe I don't want to talk about Holocaust stories on Sukkos, but of somebody that the rabbi of a certain town, that he always made a point of greeting everyone respectfully, and then he was on a line in a concentration camp, and no, different story.
Another one was somebody watching the freezer.
Oh yes, that story. Yeah, that's that. Yes, and that's why the guard recognized him, right? Yes, yeah. You know the story with the freezer. So you know the story with the freezer. It brings up the point the same way. My story, I don't talk about Holocaust story, but this guy, he was a rabbi in some little town in Europe, and he always made a point of very respectfully greeting everyone, every human. And this is the Holocaust, and he's going to a concentration camp, and there's a person right, left, and he was a rabbi. He understood. He saw what left, and he saw what right, left, and he understood from his age where he was going. Right, it's very obvious. And as he's in line, he's thinking, what type of human could be standing there and sitting there and with his hand doing that? What type of human could be sending people to their death? So it's just, which again takes a lot of presence of mind to be in that craziness. If you do or don't read any Holocaust stories to understand what's going on, but he's looking at the person, and he recognized him. He was the postman from his own town. And he's like, oh my gosh, he seemed like a human being. Anyway, okay. When he comes to his place in line, he looks him in the eye, and he said what he would say to him every day: "Good morning, Herr," whatever his last name was. "Good morning." I don't even think it's the last name. He said, "Good morning, Herr Postmaster." The guy looked at him, and he responded, "Good morning, Herr Rabbiner," and he sent him to the right. And it's just such a powerful point, not going to negative spaces, but just this powerful point of it makes such a difference. I think we don't good cards. I don't know if any of you are into or not into giving out good cards. I find I go through non-Jewish good cards very fast. Jewish ones, I don't. Somehow they sit in our book a lot longer until I find a Jew. But non-Jews, it's the world of non-Jews. Very rarely do we ever find the follow-up of a good card, because you're by definition giving them out like, people you never see again. But I've had a few in my life. I just feel like Hashem just was showing me. I had once. It was a Pesach trip we took, a Chol Hamoed Pesach. My definition of a Chol Hamoed trip is it should be ideally free, ideally indoors, and ideally very close to my house. So if I get all of those things in place, it's a good trip. So one year we found, I think Good came out with a list. Whatever, we such a place. It's whatever. It's a museum. It sounds like a funny thing. They call them the Toby mugs. Whatever. It doesn't make a difference what it is. It's a small little museum. That's very cute. And like everybody had a great time, and it was free, indoors, and closed. Alamilas. So, so there's a curator. Curator is the person that runs the museum. It's a small museum. So the curator, and then the end, they offer you free ones. But my husband said, no, it's like, they're like, I'd also, whatever. So anyways, at the end, I just very thoughtlessly just gave her a card. Like I always say, that should bring you blessings. I didn't remember what I said. I can't remember what I said. Fine. I took a card. So later I was like, this was for sure, was like Pesach Chol Hamoed trip, because we were home. And I was like, I should take my students. Like, it's so good, it's just a nice little trip for some extracurricular. So the girls went, not with me. And one of the girls, well trained, gave the curator a good card. And she said, oh, I have one already. And then she described the person who gave it to her, and they're like, oh, that's our principal. And she said to them, she said, you should know, I was having such a bad day. I'm having such a hard day. And she said, she said actually her father is like, I don't know, something in their religion. So she was raised with some sense of God. I was having such a day. And when she gave me that card, I really felt it was like a message from God. Like, I'm with you, because I have the card since. I had another situation once with a woman. Also, because again, you very rarely see these people again. So I just go to some government office for trying to get some services for my son that I got and were worthless, but whatever. So it was at the end of many hours of being there and filling out documents and talking and doing all that type of stuff. And then it was late. I remember I felt very pressured because I had to get back because my son was coming back from the bus, and it was raining. I would have to drive in the rain in an unfamiliar neighborhood. So I was very, very pressured at the end, but it was just like, automatic reflex. I gave the two people I was dealing with good cards, whatever. I said, I don't remember. And I ran. Like 3 days later, that same woman that I gave the card to, she had to come to me for a follow-up visit. She came to my house. So she comes to my house. In my house, there are many very large pictures of the Rebbe. And she saw a picture of the Rebbe, very large. And she's like, that's the man on the card you gave me. And I'm like, yes, Lord. So then she started talking about the card. And she said, when I got the card, I was thinking, why did you give this to me? I know Jews don't proselytize. I know you were giving this to me to make me Jewish. What? And I went home that night and I was talking about it with my husband. Why did you give me this card? And I was like, the only thing that it means is you care about me. You care about me as a human being. You care about my relationship to God. You're not trying to make me Jewish. You care about my relationship to God. And we had such a deep farbrengen. She was supposed to be in my house for 40 minutes, do some intake. We spent like an hour farbrengening. And then we did intake in like 10 minutes, which is really all the time it really takes. But it was such a sense of like we don't know. Does it happen every time? I don't know. But you never know when it's happening. You never know what the recipient feels. And sometimes I have had this, with some people I do see again. I'm like, I'll probably give them a card. And I say, oh, you gave me that card already. I still have it. And they show me like in their wallet a card I must have given them a year ago because I didn't remember I gave it. We don't know. So that's another very small, free thing that just requires focus. Focus is not a just, but I'm going to say that line anyway. Just requires focus of how you can illuminate the world. Not be a yachid, be a rabbin, be a person that transforms worlds that you don't even know about. You don't know about their world. You don't know this person. You don't mind. Maybe they didn't tell you their name, or maybe you forgot. But you're transforming worlds just with your own light igniting someone else's light.
A really interesting story is that my grandmother, she had unfortunately so he was coming home from nursing center. He's coming back home. I had 8 set up for him. So I to help them. I was there for a few days, and there was like every 12 hours there's a meet that comes, and it was Shabbos day, and a new lead came, and I don't know, like we started talking, and I told her Shabbos now, and like we, like because it was Shabbos, I had like a lot of friends to speak to her and like reading with her, and it was fascinating because like it just like the hashgacha practice of it was so interesting. Like towards the end, she told me how she like went through something so typical in her country. She had like a nice government job, like it was like a good respectful job. She went to America and like things didn't work out for her. She got married and it didn't work out for her, and she got through so much pain. And she said she cried and cried to God to help her, and like. And she told me like she wants direction and like she was like so happy with me. She felt like this was her answer, and I was like also wowed by that she got my breakfast. Like, what are the chances like that her shift was on Shabbos day when I have time? Any other eight I didn't have time to speak to them. I was busy. And it was her last shift. After that, she already found a better job that was her family. And it was just like I was wowed by that.
And it's that's for
like,
you.
Yeah, here you get to hear like from their end what's going on. But like just looking for that, it was interesting.
It's we don't know.
I would like her son also.
Nice, good. They managed to squeeze in their mother. Absolutely.
Like, you know what? I thought I was exhausted. Like, I really need to take care of myself. Like, it's really, I don't know. I went through like guilty in a way, like, you know, like without time, but so how does, you know, we're talking about giving to others and inspiring others, how does one inspire themselves so that they also feel like they're getting, I know, as I was thinking, as you're talking, I'm thinking, okay, guys, anything you get, like giving to others, you also feel their love and get filled out and feel their hug of, you know, whatever, you know, you just want to feel like how you're getting, like taking care of yourself, you're being loved. It sounds like here, you forget to take care of yourself, you do like your brain flows happy, that's why. How can I know that feels so look at the mama, but you must be, oh yeah. How do you get in touch with you? Like, this is your thing about it. And you would never go besides your job, you know, with your son, there's a lot going on. Maybe you don't need it as much today. I know you're still in a different category, but like most people, like how do you feel?
I think you I think you're very no I think what you're saying is so true, and I think going back to the unhealthy guilt is that sense of like, no, I'm not supposed to do that, like no, that's wrong, like no, that's not like if I was really where I'm supposed to be, no, I get fed by giving to others, and that's all I need to feed me. And every single person is different, and every single person needs to know what they need to do to feed themselves. And there are people that learn and that feeds them. And there are people that get manicures and pedicures and that feeds them. And there are people that take walks and breathe and don't bring their cell phone on the walk, and that feeds them. And it's not, you know, like the famous story of the lady that had one egg in Russia. So it's a very true point. It's a very, very true point that if we need to tell this to ourselves because it's the only way we overcome our guilt over it. So what did she say? Ich mache dir Mama, right? This is it. Yes.
Which I felt was sort of unresolved. And like, how do you know? Like, there's sometimes these two voices, like, comfort with like, I just want to be into maybe something. I really, it's really very lonely and bored. That's what it is. Like whatever, or whatever else it is. Like sometimes you're like, how do you know your voice, your inner voice,
you're new, and then other boys, it's just be so say, oh my gosh, where's that from? Stop. The voices it ingrained in us, we hear or whatever else it is, that are not kind of suffering.
So I think the example you're giving, at least those examples, because they're easy, are like the afterwards. So in other words, like if you were like Faggy said, this weird example that probably none of us ever relate to, is you finish eating and you're like, why did I do that? Why did I do that? So that's telling you that that was not feeding you. That eating was not feeding you. So when you have that experience, if you're trying to have Ahavas Yisrael for yourself, like you're saying, Aaron Cohen, Ahavas Yisrael, and it starts from, and honestly, if you're not willing to have Ahavas Yisrael for yourself, how could your Ahavas Yisrael for anyone else be genuine either? Like the Rebbe says, and several times I've seen this in the Igros where the Rebbe says, Lashon Hara applies to yourself. You're not allowed to say Lashon Hara about yourself. You're not allowed to put yourself down and say you're this and say you're that. You're not allowed to say Lashon Hara. You're a Yid. The Rebbe says, you're a Yid. So you can't say Lashon Hara about yourself. You're saying Lashon Hara, you're not allowed to say Lashon Hara. Don't look at yourself that way. In other words, whatever, I'm sure we've all heard this, like Taina on Lubavitch, that, oh, Chabad, they're so wonderful for all the Freya people out there, but for Egina, like, forget it. They don't, I'm sure we've all heard that. So take it a step further and say, I'm the ultimate Egina. I'm the ultimate Egina. So for this ultimate Egina, do I not count? Am I not a Jew that deserves love and warmth and compassion and respect? I know all the things everyone else deserves, but for some reason I don't deserve that. Then is my Ahavas Yisrael real? Hasidus says emes means it's constant. Emes means it always is. So if I have Ahavas Yisrael for the whole world, but not for my kids, if I could focus on the whole world and save the whole world, but not my children, beyond anything else, guess what? We're doing it for the whole world isn't real anyway. And if you can't do it for yourself, again, it's not real. Because if it's real, you can love yourself. And we do love ourselves, but within loving yourself. So like this example of, oh, I love myself and I see all that food and I'm going to eat because this is a way of nurturing myself. And then you eat and you feel gross. So what you need to do then is put it in your memory bank. This type of food is not self-love. It's not self-love to eat that leftover food, or as my grandmother called it, the mitzvah calories. It's such a bal tashlis. How can you throw out food? No, it's not self-love to be the garbage can. Right. So you have to. So I love what you said because it's so true. Was I eating because I was hungry? Was I eating because I was bored? Was I eating because I looked to food as a distraction? Right. So then what you have to start is by understanding with yourself. You got to see it in both. You got to be watching yourself, and you got to be saying like, let me try. My friends say they love to take walks. Let me take a walk and see what it does for me without your cell phone. And you take a walk and then it doesn't do anything for you. Okay, that means it's not on my list of self-care. Or it does, and it is. And it's so true with everything in life. And for some people, it's you.
I think it's a muscle because I think many of us, most of us, have a very, very strong muscle for caring for other people, but we have a weak muscle for caring for ourselves. And so you can
absolutely
analyze how you do that for others, take a few minutes, write that down, and see how you can apply it to yourself. And that starts to build muscle. And then it needs strengthening. It takes time.
It takes time. That's a wonderful way to think of it. And what I'm saying is you could experiment, just like if you're experimenting with someone else. And you say, I wonder what would make her feel good. You might try this, or your child. I wonder what would help them. And you try this. You're searching for that therapist. You know how many searches you go till you find one that works, but you keep searching. So you say, would the walk help? Would the better food help? Would going out with friends help? Would picking up the phone and talking to someone help? Would buying myself something help? And you watch yourself. And you could say, no, I thought all my friends go out to eat and it really makes them feel good. And I go out to eat and I don't feel good afterwards. It's not my self-care, but it could be someone else's. It's not like it doesn't work. It just doesn't happen to work for my wiring. A lot of people need time. And some people say, no, I don't want alone time. That doesn't help me. That doesn't make me feel good.
Do you mind if we take one tiny break? We usually take a picture with our speaker. Do you mind if we take a picture together?
I don't care. I'm looking at you, right? I don't have to do anything, great. You guys have to smile. Oh, I have to look also. Oh, okay. I thought I was just gonna stand there with my back.
1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
I think like their kids sort of like if you realize that what you're doing is not a healthy thing, that it was really it's emotional outlet, whatever. But sometimes we're so, let's say like fears of certain things. And so there was squishy and whatever. And it's so hard to be with because it feels so much hard to be. So I was reading some words about doing one of the things like try to just really, but I don't know. I just look through things the other day, like simple things up, but how to really be in touch with those people we're stuck. We don't even realize.
So that's what we started the farbrengen with. We started with this idea, this mimer of the Rebbe of Sukkos, where the Rebbe speaks about the power of garments to change what's going on inside of you. So let's say you would take a fear. Let's say you would have this sense of like, I have an irrational fear of whatever. And you said, okay, I feel all this fear, but I'm going to wear a garment that I'm strong and confident and fearless. And I'm demanding very often, not very often, sometimes before I would go into a class to teach, and I'm probably didn't sleep much the night before, probably have a lot on my plate, have a lot of difficult things I'm dealing with, a lot of things I'm juggling at that moment. But I know I'm walking into a room and I have 45 minutes to teach. And it's not fair for my students to be walking with any of that stuff. So I would like stop, breathe, and I'd say for 45 minutes, I'm acting. All teachers should be actresses. It's like goes with the territory. For 45 minutes, I'm going to act. And in my acting, none of these things exist. The only thing that exists is my students and my desire to inspire them and connect them to Hashem. And I would be wearing that garment for 45 minutes. It was great for them and it was great for me. Exactly.
Like we said about what's the thinking about that.
Yeah, Tsyrl locus. So if you decided you were going to take on as part of your birthday, Aaron HaKohen, Ava Tishrei, to have Ava for yourself, which is a valid Ava Tishrei. Again, here's where the guilt. No, this is good. This is good. This is good. I love what you said about the muscles, right? And I'm saying a step further. If you don't have it, how is your other stuff real? Is that real? If it's real, it extends everywhere. If it doesn't extend to you, it's not real on some level. Not to knock you and have another guilt thing, but like it's real. It should be for me as well. That's part of it being real. So then you say, hey, I love myself. And as loving myself, I want to work on myself and heal myself. And I noticed that I lately get stuck by fears. I get stymied. Let's say someone has a social anxiety. Social anxiety, which means you mean to go to the party, you get invited to go, you're so excited to go, and you don't go. And the next one, and the next one. And you don't know why, and you really want to go, and then just something comes that you're just like, you can't do it. You're just fearful. You don't even know why. Something bad's gonna happen. Whatever. So wear the garment. My garment is the actress. I think of it being the actress's garment. I am so many times I've been in situations like I know we're all in the stream and everyone's just talking about me, that type of situation. And I'm like, I'm putting on the garment. I don't notice a thing. I'm so confident and so happy and so oblivious of anything but like, and it really works. It's really weird how strongly those garments work. They are so powerful. So you're wearing that garment, and that garment is, I'm so confident. I am so full of joy. I am so happy. I am so fearless. And you just keep, but I'm not. Doesn't make a difference. That's the power of the garment. That was the point that I was making in the moment we started with. That is the power of the garment. So how long do you have to wear that garment? You'll see. What I found in my own experience is it doesn't take as long as we would imagine. We would imagine, oh my God, I don't know, maybe because it's Mashiach Zaitin, so there's so much in the world that the power changes so fast. But I found with myself in changing very fundamental things, everything happens today at fast forward. And that change also happens at fast forward.
She calls it mental rehearsal. She has to do this, she has to do it. And she has some people that's doing this, like she has to imagine, I'm not getting supported. But this thing also come outside of you, turns out you're passionate. Think of the positive outcome. Go there, go how you're gonna feel. Aren't you so happy? Like they live through the whole thing, and sometimes you say to them that you I'm not mistaken. That's what you're saying. This is what
And it's really powerful. And I think in general, if we're going to be in a situation that's hard for us, like we're like, I'm giving this example that might not be relevant to anyone, but just the example I'm going to give is like a social situation, like you're going to be there and last time, or this mother-in-law, mother, sister, whatever, friend, and you really envision yourself, you're wearing your garment, you're so confident, you're so full of life, you're so full of positivity, and you really see it, feel it, taste it. But we have the, but what I'm saying exactly, because we have the kayak, what the Rebbe is saying, of a levush, that's a spiritual entity, intersecting with your neshama. Your neshama is not fearful. Your neshama is fearless, which means you, in truth, are fearless. Your neshama is confident. Your neshama is full of life and full of joy. So when you're wearing that levush, it's what it's doing is really connecting to this deep you that is there. Exactly. And you just like live it. And then
So it's a little bit of like spells. So it actually is doing something. It's not just an act.
absolutely.
Like
It's real.
Like,
it opens up a channel, not like my daughter research got very whatever, like a whole bunch, like her whole life. So she would have like together, and they would say the Chaya and the Bracha, Mazel Tov, and say in a good person. And then they would put her on a chair and let her go, oh, you shall not. And they never was like, what? I'm engaged with
It's, we had whatever in connection to certain things. So there was a group of that's something that happened, that they formed a group of people in Chicago that were all looking for a house. Finding house in Chicago is a lot easier than finding in New York, but still. And they all just had this like bitachon and davening for each other and brachos for each other. Every single one of the people, including someone I know that's been looking for a house like 20 years, like, yeah, about 20 years, everyone that year got a house. And I know another group that did this for having children. People that mamish couldn't have children, they formed the group. This is so what I did for like a year, it wasn't my idea. Someone asked me to do it. And it's like one of the things where you say yes, and you're like, what I mean is no, 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 no. But I'm saying yes. So she asked me, whatever, trying to form a little group to like basically daven for each other. Basically the enormous power of davening for each other. And okay, fine, whatever. So 2 women would come to me Shabbos, and we did it for like a year. And it was really what happened at the end of that year is one of these women was divorced, and that wasn't the original goal of the thing, but like at the end of the year, Baruch Hashem, she got married, and I mean, this is a woman that has many children, like whatever, it was crazy, amazing how it all worked out. And after she got married, we felt like, okay, that must have been the reason for the group to have to give that koyach, but it was such a koyach every Shabbos, and it's like, again, I really said yes, saying no, I mean no, but for some reason my mouth saying yes, but I really saw that it felt so good just meeting. It was just the 3 of us. I didn't want to, the bigger it is, like 3 people that you trust, people that you can feel honest with, and just really sharing and davening the whole week. We would daven for each other for their issues, whatever was on anybody wants on their list. We would daven for each other for a week, and I'm saying from that came this whole house group, and then before that even was this idea of this group of women that all needed children, and they would all daven for each other, and every one of those people had a child.
And you start thinking good, and it's that
Well, no, that's a little different, because what's going on there is It's the purpose of it is for you to see past it and say, I'm not fooled by the wrapping paper. I'm not fooled by the disguise. I know this is Hashem. I know Hashem is only good. So no matter how not good this looks, I'm not getting fooled. I'm trusting it's Hashem and it's good, which means you accomplish the purpose of that seeming negativity. So it's done. It's tafkid was fulfilled. So the wrapping paper, the challenge drops away, and what's revealed is with the inner core, the godly, because that was the whole point. Here, what we're saying is you are the repository of all. You have all that koyach inside of yourself, and as you act it, you draw out what you really are. Or again, also it's the koyach of the levush itself. And if you're saying that, like nowadays in cognitive behavioral psychology, they do something sort of similar. Every like it says, every truth in the world has to have every truth is the wrong word. Every science in the world, every body of knowledge in the world has to have something in Torah in it, which don't get fooled. Doesn't mean it's all kosher. It's not putting a stempel on the whole thing, but it means that anything you will ever study, you will find something that's like, oh wow, I know that. That doesn't mean the whole thing is godly, but it means it exists. If it exists, it has to have some piece of truth in it, and only truth is Torah.
They're reading the secret. There's so much according to Chassidus. It's from the outside of whether it's like some places, it's constantly. I'm not sure that you ever really do not get something. Just first thing, given this concept that we're not against, but just coming from her.
Absolutely. And it's a very big thing that a lot of people struggle with today. And they'll say, but I don't understand it in Tanya. I don't get it in Tanya. If I read The Secret or this marriage book, and it's so in line and it's so in sync and everything it says, but we have the purest waters. We don't want to get something diluted, which has something to do, and everything is fine. But you detached it from the koyach. You need the koyach, and the koyach is within Torah. If so, like you're saying something like The Secret, so you have an idea, that's a true idea, that's an idea of Torah, but then it's distilled with a lot of klipa. So why would you drink polluted waters, which has some water in it, but has a lot of other impurities, when you get the water straight? You say, because I don't feel it when I get the water straight. Okay. But even if you're saying you don't know how to apply it, so then you speak to someone, you speak to Mashpia, you try to figure out how to apply it. But when we're turning to Torah for the answers, we're getting the ultimate power. So those answers are really embedded with Hashem's energy. And when we're turning to secular for the answers, even if those answers are good answers, I'm not saying the other stuff, they're actually good answers. But if they're not coming from Torah, they just don't have that power. So you're getting a very, 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 very weak, shadowy, film, like a shadow of what's like. I have a choice to go for the real goods. I have a choice to go for a shadow of the real goods. But let me get the real goods. But I don't see it in the real goods. So. You're saying by doing what?
By
and then.
With the houses, with our houses, yes. By just getting together, dialing each other. Yeah, brought Hashem.
Absolutely. So I think what you're saying is, so if I'm saying, Avishter, I want the answers through Torah, and therefore I'm going to learn the Torah and trust that through that I'll get the answers. Yes. Absolutely. Because you're turning to him. Hashem says, I'm so glad you noticed me. I'm so glad you know I'm the source. I'm so glad you're turning to me and nothing else. Like the Rebbe says, when you thank Hashem for the good, Hashem's like, oh, you like it? I can give you more. I didn't even know you appreciate it. I didn't even know you noticed. I didn't even know you were focused. That you're thanking me for it, that automatically is a koyach for Hashem to pour more.
It's very factual. I feel like a certain control, but I'm not. Because you can have issues with I know Hashem realizes it's in my heart. But let's say complete control.
That's a very, very big challenge that many people have, and I think the more you learn Hasidus, the more you get that. I think, as I understand it from the Sichos, you want to make a weak hishtadlos. To make no hishtadlos is like, no, Hashem says, I want you to work with God. In other words, like the Rebbe says, if someone has complete bitachon and doesn't do anything begashmius, will bitachon still create reality? You have complete bitachon that Hashem is finding your shidduch. You have complete bitachon that you're going to make lots of money, but you're doing nothing begashmius because it's all in the Abish's hands. So what don't you do anything begashmius for? Will you find your shidduch? Will you get your money? So the Rebbe says you will, but Hashem will be upset at you because you're forcing him to make a miracle. And Hashem likes nature. He doesn't want to make any miracle. But so if you say, okay, so Hashem wants me to work with nature. So I'm only working with nature because I'm a from yid, I'm a chassid, and therefore I'm going to make hishtadlus. Now comes the tricky part. Question is, how much is still expressing that Hashem, I'm only doing it because it's you? So the Rebbe says, once the hishtadlus gets prioritized, that means you lost it. Once you're saying, like the example the Rebbe gives, if you're not going to daven with a minion to get earlier to work to make your money, but you have bitachon Hashem's going to be the money, but you have to take hishtadlus, you lost it. Because obviously davening with a minion is more important, is a more strong keli, it's more servant. It's more avodas Hashem davening with a minion than it's avodas Hashem to go to work, even though Hashem does want you to go to work. But what comes before what? So if you're going to you're in shidduchim, so you have to make hishtadlus. You do have to make hishtadlus. How good does your hishtadlus have to be? So what I tell anyone that asks me is make a weak hishtadlus. What's a weak hishtadlus? Whatever you think you should be, do less. Because if you're saying, like, what does that mean? I don't know. Maybe for someone it means, well, I think I should call a shadchan once a week. Call once every other week. I think I should call 3 times a week. Call once a week. It's not so much the amount, it's what you think. Because if I think 3 times a week and I'm nervous, I'm going to do it 5 times a week. And if you do it twice a week, what you're saying is, Hashem, the only reason I'm making this call is because you want me to work with Inteva. I know you're going to make a miracle anyway, but you want to make your miracle disguise Inteva? Fine, Abishter. I'll do it your way. So I'll limit what I'm doing. If you have a medical issue, the Rebbe says you're supposed to get 2 opinions. The Rebbe says you're supposed to get 3 opinions. So if that's what the Rebbe says, do it. But then you need another with it. It's not about the Rebbe anymore. It's not about it's you think you run your world. It's a very important line to tell yourself like a million times. I don't run anyone else's life, and I don't run my own. I don't run my own life. I don't run my own life. And you sometimes, if it's a very hard thing, you say that to yourself like 100 times a day. I don't run anyone's world. I don't run my own. And I say to myself, thank God, I'm sure Hashem's doing a much better job than I would do. So I'm really glad I don't run my life. I'm really glad Hashem runs my life. And it's just like, let it go with him. When I was here on Monday, so we came in Monday, and I should end because everyone needs to go, but I was on Monday, and it was very nice. And the whole day traveling, before traveling, there's that fear, there's so many things that could go wrong. Your Uber comes late, they don't want, your plane is whatever, there's so many things that could go wrong. And I was like, chill, it's all Hashem, it's all gonna be fine. And Baruch Hashem, it all was, many levels. And then a very nice thing I didn't know, my son picked me up to another car, he picked me up from the airport, very nice. So then he drops me off, and then he goes to do this very simple thing called park the car. Except you're in Crown Heights, and it's Sukkos, and it's in Tishrei, all the streets are blocked off. And he has to go on the Messiah. And he's circling and circling and circling for the airport that he goes every night. So he calls me finally. He says, Ma, I can't do this. I'm like, fine. So I went in, I visited the Baruch Hashem, I still know how to drive a stick car, and I took my mother's car, and I'm like driving, and I'm like, okay, Hashem. And I'm like circle 1, circle 2, there's absolutely no parking. I'm like, Hashem, everything else worked out. Everything else was you. I'm just gonna circle, you're gonna find a spot. And Baruch Hashem, he did. I was like, it's not my car, it's my mother's car. So I didn't want to be too far from her house. So I couldn't go too many blocks away. But I was like, Hashem, you did everything else today so nicely, so well. I trust you. You can handle this one also. I'm doing my job. I'm not sitting in my apartment saying someone's going to park that car for me. But I'm also not taking ownership. I'm giving Hashem the ownership. And then somehow something got there and some treasure chest comes up with it.
Oh, time for that.
It's like, we just talk about it, and just talk about what you're saying. That's very net, maybe at this level of the show, yeah, but like, you got to do something. Yeah,
We have to do, but we don't have to do much. So I feel very strongly with that. I feel one of the biggest covert or overt miracles, at least for me for sure, is finances. And it's like somehow everything just like, it's just going to be. And I just say, don't look too closely, let Hashem deal with it. And like somehow, and I've gotten to the point where I said like, what, Hashem, it's like the mun. What did the Yidden go through with the mun? Every night, there was no food in their house. B'dafka, to train them, emunah is exercise. To train them, Daiganish, the Abishur is going to provide for you. And they did that every night for 40 years to ingrain it in us. I'm like, Hashem, you want me to live like the mun? This is so cool. So I want at the end of the month, there should be nothing, and it's all going to be there. Now, do I make a hishtadlus? I make a shaky hishtadlus. I make a very shaky hishtadlus. I do not overemphasize that hishtadlus at all. My biggest hishtadlus is giving a lot to tzedakah. That's my biggest hishtadlus in money, is giving a lot to tzedakah, making a shaky keli, but dafka shaky. Because if it's strong, that means it's like, if you make a strong keli, it's just you. If you make a shaky keli, it's Hashem. So I'd much rather be Hashem than me. Exactly. That's exactly the point. Oichle haman. Oichle haman means you go to sleep and there's nothing left. I need to give this tzedakah. I'm going to zero. That's fine, Hashem. This is exactly how you want me to live, because you're going to take care of it. It's not from Tanya, but yes. It's actually from the Gemara. Yes. It says Aser b'shvil shetis asher, and there's a pasuk ubechanuni na bezos, and on that pasuk our chachamim say that yes, it is the only place a yid is allowed to test Hashem. Goyim can test Hashem with everything. A yid is not allowed to test Hashem except with tzedakah. What's the test? You're given back manifold. It's an amazing test. It's been working for us for 35 years. And it's like literally, if there's ever a financial crisis, my husband and I say the same thing. We got to give more money away, because that is how we do it. That is how it works. I see so many people that are not Chabad bichlal. They're not. You tell this to people and they try it and it works. It absolutely works. It's an amazing thing that works. I've seen with so many people. I just tell them, you need money, give tzedakah, but I don't have money. I understand that. I totally relate. That's what you give tzedakah. And you give the tzedakah from money you don't have. Well, I said, you have a credit card? Whatever. However you're gonna do everything else that you don't have money for. Give the tzedakah, you will see it will create the money. And it does. So should you be like, that story of barrel and the barrel where you do nothing, you say, I'm going to learn and daven and not do anything? No, that's what the Rebbe is saying. It'll work, but Hashem won't be happy with you. But if you make some shaky keli, b'dafka shaky, and you give the tzedakah,
she's saying she was like so hard for her. She was so hard to make sure one summer she was like, she put away for the mouth, whatever. And she took it across to box where she hiding. And she put that here, she didn't get to shoot once. I was at her picture. I think they took my art. Once I moved out,
it was just that I'll take over. Thanks. You gave me some space.
So how long do we wait?
How long do you wait? A shaky keli means less than you think is necessary.
We have anxiety.
Less, yes. And then saying, okay, Hashem. And again, a shaky keli is very case specific. That's what I'm saying. If I would tell someone to make a shaky keli, I would ask them, what do you think you should be doing? So do less than that. So that's your shaky keli, because Hashem, I think for this medical issue, I need to go and I can't go to my regular doctor. I have to go to a better doctor. I have to go to a better doctor. So then it's not about Hashem, it's about the doctors. Chulin? Yeah. That you're saying in the bar mitzvah you shouldn't make a shaky keli?
Yeah.
Well, it depends what it is.
Like I'm saying, like
You're making a pa'ula, and you should invest yourself to make sure it comes out as good as you can do while realizing it'll all come out the way Hashem wants it. Yeah, because then the whole thing is avodah. In other words, that was the point the Rebbe is making. If it's gashmius, is gashmius serving Hashem? Absolutely. Let's say it's a shidduch. Does Hashem want you to be married? Hashem wants you to be married. So is working on a shidduch serving Hashem? Absolutely. Hashem wants you to be married. A person has fertility issues. Does Hashem want you to have children? Of course Hashem wants you to have children. So working on fertility is avodas Hashem. Of course it is. But as the Rebbe says, a mitzvah, if it's the learning, the davening, the tzedakah, the pa'ulas, the mitzvayim, that's more higher on the ladder than all the gashmias. So the gashmias is part of avodas Hashem. Hashem wants it, but it's lower on the totem pole. So the Rebbe says, therefore, do it less, deprioritize it to clearly express and live this message. I'm only doing this because it's your ratzon. It's only your ratzon. So if for a shidduch, a person thinks I need to make an effort once a week to make sure my name's out there, do it once every other week. Because you want to tell Hashem, if it was for me, I'd be doing this, but I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be about you. So I'm doing less. How long ad masai? How long for any of these things? We just go back to, I have plenty of things in my life I'm waiting for. And we just go back to Hashem. I trust you. And I know you love me more. You love me more. I remember I was once going through a very hard time. And I happened to be at my mother's house. It doesn't do with a hard time. It happened to be there for whatever reason. And I remember thinking, my mother loves me so much. But my mother's limited. A, she doesn't know what I'm going through. Obviously, I don't want to share it with her. And B, if she knew, what could she do about it anyway? But here's the Eibishter. The Eibishter knows everything I'm going through. And Eibishter's kol yachol. He can do it all easily. And I'm still going through this. And the Eibishter's love for me is greater than my mother's love for me. Because however much my mother loves me, she's a finite human being. Eibishter's ain't so. So he has infinite love, infinite understanding of every drop of pain I'm going through, and infinite abilities to turn it over in a second. And he's still having me go through this. That's what I need. This is what I need. Everything is Hashem, and everything is good. And a lot of times it sure doesn't feel good. So you have to realign and say, Hashem. And Hashem says, I love you. Trust me. I love you. I know. Bye.